Could you imagine waking up at 3:30 this morning, and then for the next 80 consecutive days, waking up at 3:30 in the morning, not just making a cup of tea, not just waiting for the bus to commute to work. You have to get on a bike. You have to sit in a saddle for the next 16 hours and have all of your food. Most of your calories for those 16 hours are going to come from blended up food that they're going to stick in a bucket for you on the front of your bike, and you're going to suck it up through a straw for the next 16 hours for the next 80 consecutive days. And you're going to have to ride through the most horrendous extreme conditions on Earth for the next 16 hours, every single day for the next 80 days. I can't even imagine waking up at 3:30 this morning. So I don't understand how Mark Bowman has just completed this circumnavigation of the globe in under 80 days on his bike. It's just insane. And what fascinates me about these kind of ultra endurance challenges is not the protocol, not the statistics, the data. That just gives you an insight into the thing that really interests me, which is the mindset. The mindset of the person that Mark Bowman has to be, his personality, what it takes, the secret sauce that it takes to be able to complete an ultra endurance challenge like this, any challenge as extreme as this. So just looking at some of the statistics, 15 miles an hour for 16 hours a day for the next 80 days. You have to cover 240 miles a day, 240 miles every single day. So earlier this year, I completed the Dunwich Dynamo, a double Dunwich Dynamo, which is a challenge where you ride to the coast and you ride back again to London. And that was 240 miles. And I can't imagine what the little niggles that you felt during just that one day, how exponentially massive those little niggles would become. They'd become monsters, monster niggles that would just destroy your body. I can't even imagine over 80 days what they would look like. And then 182 watts before the challenge, he said his target was to push 182 watts for those 16 hours every single day, which actually pushing 200 watts sounds like quite a lot, which in the end, so looking at his Strava, he was pushing 80 to 120 watts in that kind of range, which is more like probably what Mark wanted to do if he wanted to keep everything aerobic. So Mark keeping everything aerobic meant that he was creating as little fatigue in his body as possible. So as little of the energy, the wattage that he was pushing was coming from anaerobic work, from glycolysis as possible. So if you start to push anaerobically, if you're pushing over 200 watts, then it means that a lot of the energy is going to be coming from more carbohydrate, from the glucose, from the glycogen, from glycolysis, from the fuel that you're putting in your body rather than from your fat stores. So as an ultra endurance athlete, you have this endless store of fat that you can call upon, which means that you're less distracted from having to take on food, and your body is less distracted from digesting food. So you have all this endless supply of fat, and when you're pushing energy, when you're pushing wattage aerobically, more of a proportion of the energy that you're pushing is going to be coming from fat than it is going to be coming from the external fuel, from the carbohydrate. So that was quite interesting, seeing that he was keeping everything aerobic. The thing that I find it difficult when I go out on a ride not to push more than 200 watts when I just turn the pedals. So having to be disciplined enough not to go over 180 watts, over 120 watts is a discipline, is a feat in itself. And then also, speaking of fuel, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 calories a day when I was looking at his Strava, and probably about an average of 5,500 calories plus his basal metabolic rate. So he's burning around 8,000 calories every single day. 8,000 calories every single day. That's insane. 8,000 calories a day. And then looking at his nutrition following his journey, he was putting all those calories right back in again every single day. There wasn't a day that went by where he was in a caloric deficit. But most of those calories were all coming from fuel blended up in a liquid form and put on his bike, and he was just consuming that through a straw. And then he was allowed one meal a day, one solid meal a day at the end of the 16 hours. Just crazy, crazy discipline. It's like creating this perfect factory process where you're burning your stores, and then you're putting this energy back in, your body's replenishing it, and then you're burning your stores again. You're just trying to create as little friction in that factory process as possible. What drives a person like that to be able to complete a challenge like this? It's incredible. That is what interests me the most. Anybody can push 182 watts. You could push 182 watts right now, and in theory you could push 182 watts for 16 hours, and in theory you could push 182 watts for the next 80 days, and in theory you could consume 8,000 calories and burn 8,000 calories. So if these simple protocols are so, so easy for, anybody could do them, these simple protocols. What is the difference? The difference is that Mark's mind, his capacity to suffer, is so much greater. He wants this challenge so much more than the average person. His grit, he has so much more will than the average person to do something like this. He has an iron will. The iron will comes from his want. When the want is strong enough, the how comes easy. And so for Mark, these protocols are just the steps he has to take to get to where he wants to go, to be where he wants to be at the end of this challenge, completing this challenge. He wants that so badly that he's willing to push himself through these protocols, and they're just the stepping stones that it takes for him to get there. And that's the difference. That's the difference. That's what fascinates me is the want. You have to complete any extreme challenge like this, to do things that you never thought you could do. You have to want. Your want has to be so strong that it means that you will go through anything, through any protocol to have to get there. And that is what fascinates me so much. And that is what I take from Mark's inspirational challenge. That is what inspires me most about what Mark has done. Not all these statistics, not all this data, not even the pictures of where he's been, because I wasn't there. I can't experience exactly what he went through, but just to be inspired by what it takes. What are you willing to do to get to where you want to be? Think of what you could achieve if you wanted it bad enough.